Hi, everybody. Official welcome. I can't believe it is the third in our three-part series of our book, CONEtrolled. Okay, I'm on a background screen, so it's hard to see all my stickies. I didn't even end up putting all the stickies on the last part, but there was a lot. And I'm realizing, Nava, thank you so much, first of all, again, for being here for three parts. I know for those who didn't make it before to our other two, there are recordings. And it's a good thing we did it in three parts because there's a lot of amazing information. And I have to say, the last part was a little harder to get through. So you do need a bit of breathing space. So for this series, what we've done, we've broken the book into three parts, and Nava's going to share her screen again today because the concepts in it, much better coming from the author. So welcome again. For those who haven't been here, Dr. Nava Israel. She's a lifelong entrepreneur, a professional educator, an avid social innovator and philosopher at heart with an insatiable curiosity for sciences, critical thinking, human behavior, social justice, our place in the universe, and the intersections of all of the above. And I have to say, Nava, this book, and the work that you will be continuing to do with the Cone model is so needed in this world. Realizing what cones we are in ourselves. And then I'm glad that there was a good part at the end that there's a better way. So we'll talk about that and all of that too. So welcome again. And I know everybody here, but for those watching later, I'm Helen Patterson, founder of Life Works Well. And my passion has been mentorship, especially over the last, I'd say decade. And so as I look to do what work I have to do in the world, I really believe that mentorship is something that, can help us work toward a better future, and giving of our knowledge and talents and helping people see. So creating that space that you are allowing here, Nava, to open our eyes to what is existing and to ideally co-create with others is going to be magical. And I'm looking forward to today, our final With Heart book circle of 2025. And I'm so glad that you're here. So over to you, Nava. Thanks again, and for everyone showing up today.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. It's such a delight to speak to people who are, if you haven't read, at least interested in hearing about this book. And, you said that the last part was sort of difficult to go through because you're like, your soul is exhausted at a certain point from the darkness. And, I said that in the last time we met, and that writing this book took such an emotional toll on me, because it was almost 5 years of dredging the bottom of humanity, right? Of sort of going through systems that are so oppressive and all around us, honestly, working using the exact same pattern, that towards the end, I felt like I have no air in my body anymore, And then, of course, I started writing about how we can not only undo it, but actually do it so much better without falling into these same pitfalls and into the same. And I wrote and I wrote, and it just gave me a new wind. And as I was proceeding with writing this final part, I realized that my book is now like 800 pages and that it's a little much. So what I did is I left only that final chapter, the chapter 20, speaking about, in general, about the possibilities and the different ways. And actually, there's another book that speaks mostly about how we can all do things better in a way that don't fall into these pitfalls. So Yeah. I hear you when you said it was difficult to go through. Um, Today, I want to talk to you a little bit about the, we spoke about how cones are erected and how they are built and how we are being brainwashed basically into them, either from childhood or through propaganda or through ongoing cultural indoctrination. And when you think about evil machines or evil systems, we think about these evil hero, anti-heroes from Marvel, the slick, very efficient, lean and mean evil machines. But actually, most cones or cone systems are not lean and mean. They may start that way and then they degrade into something sometimes to the point of ridiculous. And there's that old joke that I used in the book about the tanks, where a military unit buys new tanks, and in the manual, the general reads that they need to be oiled on a monthly basis. So he tells his lieutenants, just to be on the safe side, these need to be oiled every other week. And the lieutenants tell the technicians, these need to be oiled every single week. And the technicians decide that just to be on the safe side, they will oil it every single day. And so everyone is busy oiling the tanks, no one can drive them, and eventually they fall apart. And that is a good analogy to what happens to these cone systems. They become so cumbersome and so convoluted and bureaucratic, sometimes on purpose to make it impossible to navigate through it, to complain or to ask for changes. You just get lost in the system. But mostly because cones are built on low trust culture. So if you think about cultural values, think about the Canadian culture, for example, and to a certain extent the American as well, although less and less these days. These are high trust cultures, meaning we generally trust each other and we generally trust the systems around us. We trust them to be in our best interest. We trust them not to be harmful to us. And it takes effort on the part of someone else to prove us wrong and decide that we can't trust them. Low trust cultures, they start from the other end. You cannot trust anyone and anything. You cannot trust people. You cannot trust systems. Everyone is out there to screw you over. And when you live in that mindset, you create rules and laws and multiple rules and laws because no one can be trusted. And so you need to put in place these high controlling systems to make sure that no one and nothing screws you over. Okay. And so these systems, they inflate and inflate. So, think about big companies. They can be the more they are coned, the more they are bureaucratic and convoluted. But even personal relationships, think about a relationship with a narcissist, with someone who is abusive. The longer you have a relationship with this individual, the more rules this relationship will have, and the easier it will be for you to break any kind of rule. And if there was no explicit rule, anything you do suddenly becomes a violation, right? So it's that low trust, high control system that multiplies rules. If you think about religions, organized religions are classic cones or cults, where you have so many strict rules and just endless rules. And it's so easy to be a sinner, by merely sneezing the wrong way. So, cones they are corrupt and they bend the rules. So not only do they create multiple rules, these rules don't apply to the cone masters, right? Or they seem to apply, but not really, because they can get away with anything because they are the ones who control these rules. They are very bureaucratic, very sluggish, and they colonize. Now, in recent, I would say 2-3 decades, the word colonizers or colonizing became very widespread, and people use it, assuming that everyone knows what it means. But actually, just to clarify what I mean when I say colonizing, we know colonization through countries taking over other countries, right? It's that kind of conquest based. But cones can colonize in many different ways. For example, when you have a monopoly, right, on something, a single electrical company in the whole country, that's a monopoly. That's colonizing. It colonizes every smaller supplier that could compete with it and provide better services. But when it takes over, it has a colonizing effect, right? Because it takes over, it kills competition, it becomes the only solution, and it's the highway or my way or the highway, which is typical to cones. So colonizing can come in many, many different ways. An abusive partner can colonize your life. And what does it mean? They isolate you from all your friends. They take over your life. You, as a totality, belong to them, right? That is a form of colonizing. Your behaviors will have to change to accommodate their expectations and their needs. That's colonization, right? So cones colonize at different levels, and that's how they expand, either physically, fiscally, power-wise, etc. Now, when they become very big or very strong or very confident in themselves, because it's not just big and strong. So I always go back to the single person example. When you are in an abusive relationship, at a certain point, we start waking up. At a certain point, someone will point out the fact that this is not how things should be. At a certain point, rebels will awaken and say, hell no, right? And then what happens? I call it the U-turn. And the U-turn is, if you look at, so the X is the time axis, right? And in the beginning, we have a problem, and for whatever problem it is. And for that problem, we come up with solutions. And the more we have solutions and the more we start using and getting used to these solutions, the more we feel that our problem is at least partially addressed and we start feeling better, right? So things, the severity of the problem goes lower and lower and lower. But then at a certain point, the solution becomes a system, and the system becomes a cone, and the cone becomes established and abusive. And that's when our problem keeps growing and growing. And it can be the same problem, or it could be a new problem that the cone has created for us. And then our new problem is the cone. Okay, so that's the U-turn. It's like we have this honeymoon phase with a solution, and then it becomes crappy and controlling, and then we are like, that's not good. So the problem with cones is that even though eventually they crumble and fall, and by the way, one of the things I want to say before is that when solutions start to crumble, when the faith in the solution starts to wane, and people are starting to question and leave that system or that person or that cone, what do cone masters do? Do they fess up? Do they say, mea culpa, sorry, I screwed up, let's do it better? Never. ever, ever. If you've ever had a relationship with a narcissist, you will know, or you've witnessed someone in a relationship, in an abusive relationship, you will know that the more the subject rebels and raises their head and sets boundaries, the more severe the abuse and control. There is never accountability, ever. There's never a situation where cone masters say, you know what, I thought it over and you're right, let's do it better. And if they do, it's a scam until you are under their wing again, and then they revert to who they were before. And big organizations do that. For example, one of the examples I give in the book is the financial organization that caused a financial crisis in 2008. And they, of course, were bailed out by the government. Millions of people lost their savings, lost their homes. Cities were devastated. And then years later, they came and said, oh, I'm going to donate $200 million to help this city, rebuild this city, which they bankrupt. And to us, 200 million sounds like, ooh, that's a lot of money. But for them, it was 0.004% of their value, which is like a person who's worth $50,000 donates $20. That's it. And that kind of performative donation or performative grace is a spectacle. It is a spectacle to make them look good. And again, I go back to the personal level. A sociopath or a narcissist will bring gifts to their victim, and these gifts will be given in public, so everyone sees what a great partner they are. They will make big gestures and then go home and beat their wife. So it's these gestures we see from oil and gas companies who invest money in greenwashing, basically promising us that now they're going green, just now, tomorrow we're going green. Of course, it's bullshit. All their money goes into the campaigns, not into doing anything else, because it's against their interests. So eventually no one fesses up and rebellion happens and people are starting to wake up, and people either walk away, they burn the cone. But then the horrible thing that happens is that cones reincarnate. They are being reborn. And how do they reincarnate? So there are different patterns of reincarnation of cones. One pattern is what I call a circular pattern. It's starting from something and going back to the exact same something. So let's take, for example, a gang, a street gang, any crime gang. At a certain point, the members of the gang become disillusioned. They are not getting enough money. Their leader isn't appreciating them. Whatever it is that happens, that they are unhappy, someone rises through the ranks and says, we have a coup, I will be the next leader, right? Because the gang leader, the gang becomes a problem. And so a small minority will leave and rebuild their lives outside of crime, but truly a tiny minority. And in many gangs, if you want to leave, you only leave in a coffin. And so even those who do want to leave will not. But the majority will support a coup. And then there will be a new solution, which is the new leader. Of course, very quickly, that new leader will create the next oppressive cone, the next oppressive gang structure. That is a circular reconing. And we see these things. I go back to the personal examples or individual examples. Is we know statistically that many abused partners who lived with abuse. First of all, many of them have been abused in childhood, and therefore for them it's the normal. And then they marry the abuser. If they are lucky to leave, the next relationship is with the next abuser in line. If they did not do a deep, deep healing and awakening, it's that circular reconing of themselves. But it can also be a pendulum. And we see these pendulums around the world in different ways. So I took the example of governments. So think about a right-wing government. And we have a few that we can think about, right? So an extreme right-wing government, eventually people will awaken to the fact that the cone is getting emptied of substance, emptied of their promises of delivery. And so they have the government has no concern for some people's needs. There's an inequality, usually there's poverty. And so people rebel. Rebellion leads to radical approaches. Because when you leave something with anger and angst, you go to the exact opposite side. It's like a slingshot, right? You have this potential energy and you're getting, and once you're released, it's like flies to the other side, not to the middle. So very few people have moderate approaches, and when they leave the extreme right wing, they're like, okay, we'll look at something moderate. But many go, they say, ditch the dogma. We need the complete opposite. And then they go for a left-wing government. And it can be more and more radical. So the more radical is one side, the other side get radicalized as well. And sadly, nothing radical is ever good. I mean, doesn't matter which political view you have. Once it becomes radical, it is not great. It is a cone. And so very extreme left-wing government, again, goes through that process of coning. And eventually people realize that it is an emptied cone, that they don't have concern for some people's needs. There is oppression, there is anger. And again, the same thing happens. They say, fuck these, pardon me. We don't want them. We need a strong leader, right? We need a strong leader who will lead us into whatever. And so you see many times this pendulum from left to right, right? So this is a pendulum reconing. And then there's something similar to pendulum reconing, which I call spiral reconing. And a spiral reconing looks like this. Let's take an example of ancient cultures and ancient peoples who believed and still believe, if they are still alive, that there are many spirits and deities, and that everything is alive and connected. Right? This is a very ancient understanding of life and the world. But then, with time, they were called the primitives. And a new wave came, a new wave of solutions which materialized into organized religions, and specifically monotheism. So there's one God, and you can only pursue this one God, and this one God is a male God, and it will tell you what to do, and if you don't do it, we will punish you. Or there are multiple male gods, and they will punish you, or whatever, right? And then, of course, came the age of science. And the scientists started saying, religion is dogmatic, it's primitive, science is the thing. But science also became religion in many ways. It became scientism. And we've heard a lot of that during, I think it came up to the masses. I mean, many scientists have known that for many, many, many years, that this has become an orthodoxy. Not scientists, the scientism, right? Science is pure, humans are not. Um, and what happened was that during COVID, we've heard a lot of that scientism coming through sentences like trust the science, which was another way of saying shut up and take the injections, right? Like, do not ask us questions. And if you do, we will discredit you, we will fire you, you cannot work without, like, the scientism suddenly became very vivid to many people who were not aware of it. And that's just one area, but scientism exists throughout modern science in different areas. And now there is an awakening, a reawakening that says, you know what? Scientism is dogmatic, it is limited, and it is limiting. And more scientists and people who are not in science are saying, you know, we are now aware that everything is alive and connected. Now, does that sound familiar? That is what I call a spiral. Now, the reason it's not circular, it's spiral, is because every time there's like a different iteration to it, like a different naming, a different kind of framework, but it's actually cryptomangia. Cryptomangia is like forgetting that you stole something from someone and attributing it to yourself. So I'll give you a very simple example. I'm sure it happened to you. Someone told you a joke or a story, and a year later, you forgot who told you that, but you remember the joke, and you meet with that person, and you say, oh, listen, I have a great joke to tell you, and you tell them that joke. And they're like, I know, I told you that joke. You're like, really? I don't remember. So that's a basic example of an innocent, harmless cryptomangia, right? But when it's societal, society doesn't forget, because there are records, there is history, there are ways society can remember. When society commits cryptomangia, that's theft. That is intentional. And many times these things happen when, for example, in science, even in science, there are these pioneer scientists that come up with a very revolutionary concept. And all the scientific orthodoxy says, oh, they are the kooks, right? Don't notice that. they're embarrassing, you know. Years and years later, the majority of scientists find that it's true, but they call it something else, and they never acknowledge the people who came up with it the first time around. So, and we see it in many, many different ways, just like now. You know, transcendental meditation became mindfulness, but mindfulness is modern, right? Herbal supplements became the new wave of medicine, evidence-based, because now there's research, and no one acknowledges that it came from, ancient peoples and indigenous peoples. So that's the societal, social cryptomangia that we're seeing, and it becomes a cone, because when you steal something and you're invested in it, that becomes a cone. And now if you are, if you had doubts about vaccines, some people will go in full-fledged anti-vaxxing, like all vaccines are horrible, never take any vaccines, right? So again, it's that extremism that we are pushed to for many different reasons. As I said, we have in the first meeting that we had, I spoke about vulnerabilities. And when we have these vulnerabilities to manipulation, these vulnerabilities are exploited by manipulators. And when one manipulator loses their effect on us and we still haven't healed our vulnerability, the next manipulator in line will come and find these vulnerabilities. So, after all that, the light at the end of this tunnel, and there is so much of it, so much light, and that is something that I hope that my message will come across loud and clear in this forum and in every other forum that I speak. It is true that we see a lot of darkness. It is true that cones are all around us, but there are also so many wonderful things happening in this world. They are just not as loud, and they are not broadcasted through mainstream anything, because cones are powerful and they control media. Cones control communications, big propaganda, and they have the tools to silence the solutions that are inconvenient to them, right? That inconvenience them. That's why all the alternate clean energy solutions took so many decades to start popping out, not because they didn't exist. They existed in the middle of the 19th century, not 20th, 19th. And they have been suppressed and suppressed and suppressed for over 100, 150 years, because there were industries that were powerful and had no interest in anyone knowing about these alternate solutions. But as time goes by, light shines through in different ways. So the first step that I suggest is question the lies. Unfortunately, it is so difficult now. There is such a shit show of false information everywhere we look, and fake news, and AI now falls into the wrong hands, where lies can manifest as real and be shown as truthful. But we need to engage in questioning and doing the research ourselves. There are three big lies that cones tell us. One big lie is that humans are selfish, violent, and competitive by nature. And because this is a dog-eat-dog world, you can't trust anyone. You can only trust us, the cone. We will protect you. We will tell you what to do. You can't trust anyone else. And that is, of course, a lie. We are innately trusting human beings. We have evolved by living in trusting communities. And so we have this innately, unless it is killed in us, right? From childhood. The other lie that cones say is you need the cone and won't survive without it. How many times have you heard abusers say that to their victims? You are nothing without me. You will not survive out there. You need me to survive, right? Of course, it's a lie. And the third common lie is that's just how the world works and there's no other way. And because that's mostly what we see, because that's mostly what's shown to us, we believe it. We believe that the world is evil, that we need strong leaders to save us, that there's no other way but exploiting the weak. It's those mindsets that are created in this enclosed kaleidoscope that we are shown that is false. And outside of it, there is reality. And the reality is far more beautiful than what we are shown. And people are far more wonderful and collaborative than what we are made to believe. The second step is, what do you do when you finally realize that something in your life or someone in your life is a cone? You can stay and suffer. Not all of us have the luxury of leaving, or you can fight it. That creates a risk. Usually it's a risk to yourself. It can be a risk to your loved ones, depending on what the system is, how punitive it is, how dangerous it is to fight it. And even if it's not dangerous physically, not all of us are fighters by nature. And when we decide to fight, it can cost us our mental health. And then the question is it worth it? But there's always an option to walk away. And walking away can be physically walking away, like leaving a congregation, leaving an abusive community, signing out of an abusive system, leaving an abusive partner. And if there are no options of actually leaving because it is too dangerous or it's forbidden, you can leave internally. You can leave inside of yourself. You can disengage from the angst and the anger and the hurt, and you can find ways to create boundaries that support your inner peace. So there are always ways, even in the worst conditions and situations, people can find a way to walk away from a cone, either physically or internally. The third thing that I always say is find your people. One of the biases that we live in is that we are the only ones who feel that way. We are the only ones who think that way, and everyone else is still with a cone. And because we don't know that there are others who think exactly like that, everyone is afraid to say, no one says, and everyone thinks that no one thinks, right? And so it is a conscious bias. And so what we need to do is we need to be brave enough to find our people and build a community with them in one shape or another, whatever the community or whatever the solution is. And of course, then do better. Don't build the next cone. Examine your core certainties. What do they tell you? How harmful are they? Who told you that? Why do you believe that? Who suffers from your core certainties? Dig deep into your own identified problems and needs. Are you solving your symptoms? Women, we are all women here. We are told from a very, very young age that we are insufficient, that we are not beautiful enough, not lean enough, not nice enough, not anything enough, right? And we live with these falsehoods that were implanted into us. And so we exert ourselves and we punish ourselves for wanting to be beautiful even when we age, to be young even when, so what we're doing is we are addressing symptoms. And the problem is that we are not whole with who we are, right? That's the problem. And if we address this problem, and we see more and more women, which is absolutely lovely. I love, there are a lot of celebrities nowadays, female celebrities who are aging and they are proud of aging, and they're not ashamed of not having boobs standing up or whatever. And I think it's such a refreshing take on addressing the problem, where once you are whole with yourself, you don't need to please anyone with your looks, with your smiles, with your anything, right? So again, we need to dig deep into what our identified problems are, our needs are. We need to, when we leave a cone, we need to make sure we don't throw away the baby with the bathwater. Remember the pendulum cone, when we go from one extreme to the next extreme? Every solution possible in the world has something positive that helped us in some shape or form, or we would not have stayed with it for so long. I'll give you the worst example possible. A street gang. If you are a member of a street gang or a cartel, right? A crime cartel, you may say, what's good about that? Where are the good things? Well, it keeps you financially. It gives you a sense of belonging. It provides you a hope for a better future for yourself. It provides you a sense of camaraderie along with all the other crap, right? But if you leave a gang and you don't resolve these needs that were answered in that solution, then you will be left with a hole and you will be looking for someone to fill these needs, and usually in all the wrong ways, right? So when we leave a solution, we always have to look back and say, but what was good about that? But what did I get from it that I want to keep getting, but in a better way, in a way that doesn't hurt me, in a way that doesn't harm me, doesn't control me, right? So this is really important. And if we do eliminate everything, we just build the next cone in line, the opposite one. Start small. And I keep reminding myself of that because, with this book, I feel that I have this mission to change the world. And every time I sort of smack myself and I say, remain humble, you will not change the world, but you will, what you can hope for is remain small and create ripples that will create change, that will create change, that will create change, right? And so my goal is to initiate these ripples that will create this change in the world. But sometimes, we are ambitious or we feel very strongly about the cause and we want to lead it and that, again, these very powerful, uncompromising emotions about something lead to a cone. Okay? And that is always dangerous. And of course, keep your ego in check and keep evolving. All right. I told you last time about the cone diagnostics that I've developed, and it's progressing, and I'm working on it, and I'm hoping to launch it maybe in March this year. And these diagnostics will help individuals, and later on I will release for relationships, and later on for organizations, to figure out what our vulnerabilities are, what I believe in, what are my core certainties, who controls me through what cones govern me, and of course, how do I plan to get out from under them. And I have the organizational diagnostic, which I already piloted and now improved, which helps organizations figure out whether they are coned or on their way to become cones, and stop doing it and figure out what the issue is. And then later, maybe next year, I will develop the Centropic organization. I will not bother you with that now. Thank you so much.
This is so fantastic. I know, listen, even in 3 parts, there was a lot. So first, I'm going to just continue to share the book out. And I just look forward to more of the work that you're doing and breaking it down. I could see you just like you're creating the modules. For those who haven't had a chance, they can go check out your self-assessment. Is it okay if I just read the last part, the wishes
Yeah.
and blessings?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to just share. This is like everyone can take a deep breath, and then we have a longer session this time because we did that purposefully because it is so much to take in. And as I said, even reading it, but this is very positive. So I'm going to read this. Wishes and blessings. May we all walk with humble bearing, with minds wide open, enduring hearts, away from traps of senseless tenets where cones are lurking in the dark. May we shed shackles of false hatred, embrace our inner light instead. May we remember our true beauty, no terms, conditions, expiration dates. May we disrupt with grace and courage, without destruction on our path. May we renew without our dogmas that push us back into the muck. May we be one with those unlike us, as surely as with those like us. May we shed fear that isn't ours and walk with love no matter what. May we all soar without restrictions. May we all heal without the shame. May we forgive without the vengeance and build anew without regret. May we sojourn with every creature. May we move gently on this earth, walk hand in hand with Mother Gaia, and tap the source for all its light. Great way to end the book, and great way to
Really, it
it.
was, I'm not a poet and I never wrote any poem of any kind, but I felt that for this book, it has to end with something like this. And it came.
Yeah.
So I was so,
Yeah, it was beautiful. And I mean that last chapter of what's next and what we can do, again, seeing, being able to read through this, Nava, thank you again, just to kind of open the eye-opening parts of it. Because I mean, we do look at many things. Like we talked about this through the three sessions and all the work we do together, Emmeline here and all of those who I've talked to here that, they can see things that they want to help change. And there's so much. Like when you start thinking about the profits and the environment and hatred and racism, it can get overwhelming. So to be able to kind of see, what is your part and how do you kind of just open up to it. And I liked what you wrote about in the last few chapters, and maybe we can talk about a few tips, or, tips are hard, but because it's a lot to do. But just thinking about starting small and locally and in your communities and connections, things like this book circle or other communities, versus thinking the whole world has to change right away. So, maybe you could give us a couple of, again, I know you touched on them, but for someone who's looking to be encouraged to think about those smaller ways in their local
yes,
areas. What do you think about
definitely.
just a few things to share, and then I'll open it up to whoever else would like to ask some questions.
Sure. You know, I will start with the smallest one, which is ourselves. Sometimes we think that in order to change the world, we have to boil the ocean, right? We have to do everything. And when we think that way, obviously it's impossible. And because it's impossible, we get so despaired and so discouraged that we end up doing nothing, right? Because it's overwhelming, because you see it all around you and you're like, what can I, an individual, do in this world of, crap? Um, so I think that actually the greatest change that we can make is within ourselves. It is that change of understanding the power of one. And if every person in the world, or half, or 20%, or 13%, right? Because when we look at tipping points, we don't need 100% of the people. We need 13 to 15% to tip the point into something completely different. So if there are enough people who start the change with themselves, walking out of their cones and saying, I want to live in peace with myself, with my fellow men, with this earth, and I will find other people like me who want to do the same. And it's okay if we do it tiny. If we do it small, if we're 3 people, 5 people, 12 people, it's fine. Whatever I can do is fine, to the point where it does not ruin me, to the point where it does not destroy my soul. Because we see what happens to a lot of people who are revolutionary, who are activists, right? Activism carries an expensive toll, an expensive personal toll. and it sometimes leads to the next cone. So here are some examples of the small things that can swell into big, beautiful things. One of the examples I gave in my book is about a movement in Sri Lanka. And there's a movement, I can't remember their name right now. I'm horrible with names. But there's a movement that was started by a single person. And Sri Lanka is not a very rich country. It's a developing country. And there was a lot of social and political unrest. And a lot of people live in deep, deep poverty and starvation. And so this person created a movement that was based on an understanding or on a culture of collaboration, on what we call, I think in Correlus, we call it radical generosity, right? So on that mindset, he said, listen, you know the story of the stone soup, right? Not each of us did not have enough to eat, but when we put our resources together, we cooked a soup that fed the whole village, right? So he said, based on that principle, each of us will contribute whatever you can. And there were families who contribute, and it was called the Matchbox campaign. Fill a matchbox with whatever you have, with rice, with dal, with legumes, whatever you have with a vegetable. Fill a matchbox, which is a very small thing, which anyone can do, even someone who doesn't have much. And then we put everything together. And when we put all of these together, we can feed our children in school so that they don't go hungry the whole day. Even if you don't have children, if you contribute that one matchbox of food, we can feed. And that principle grew and grew, and people were encouraged to create their own little home businesses, right? I can mend shoes. I can fix your tractor. I can knit your sweaters. And so more and more of these barter, right, systems or social currency systems grew and grew and grew. And when I wrote my book, maybe 2-3 years ago, there were 15,000 villages that have created a network of supports, and they are now living completely without their government support. They rely on their social network, and they thrive. They thrive. They have businesses. They support each other in times of need. If someone fails, everyone lifts them up. No children go hungry. They have their own doctors. They have their, right? So these things are possible even in the poorest of countries, let alone in so many countries that are well developed, where people have resources and existing systems that can be tapped into, or new ones that can be created, where we are able to rely on each other, to support each other. We see more and more things like communal gardens, right? Even in the poorest of cities, there are now communal gardens. In the UK, they came up with, I can't remember what it is, a potato week or something like that. So they came up with the idea that a potato is the cheapest vegetable, but it can feed you even if you don't have much, right? And so, but baking a potato is electricity, and electricity has a cost. So within the building, they said, we don't need to activate 20 microwaves or ovens to bake 20 potatoes. We can have one oven at a time baking 20 potatoes for everyone. And so they have like a drive share, right? Every day someone else bakes the potatoes for everyone in their oven. So what I'm saying is it doesn't have to be earth-shattering solutions, but this kind of collaboration leads to the next level of collaboration. Because if someone's sick, now that they have a sharing community, there will be neighbors who know them and will support them. They will not let them live on the street. You know what I mean? One good deed leads to the next, leads to the next, leads to something beautiful. So I think that's why I'm saying you can start small, so long as your mind is in the right way and in the right place, and your heart is in the right place, and you find your own people, you can change the world. We can change the world.
Love it. Love it. I'd like to open it up if anybody else would like to either comment or ask Nava some other questions. I mean, really, a lot of it does start with our own awakening, as you referred to it, and that actually that word and theme keeps coming up for me a lot in the last year, or well, few years actually. So, it starts with us. Andrea, I know you always, she has a lot of comments that she's put in the,
Oh, sorry, I haven't seen.
no, it's okay. It's okay. But actually the assessment. I mean, maybe in the new year we could do another one where if people have done the assessment and they want to, have a separate chat to kind of explore some of that,
Sure.
that would
What I
be
can
good.
do is, so on my website, I have like, it's like a drop in the ocean. You can download and answer a few questions, and it'll give you sort of a little
Mhm.
bit of an idea. But the tool I'm talking about, the diagnostic tool, that's a beast. It's a beast. And it's sort of like an online course actually with
Mm,
apps in it that are interactive that summarize your answers and give you automated the
mm.
responses. It's like I'm working with um, coding on this, but I am happy to offer it for free for a pilot with all of your forum here. If you want to try it out and then provide me with
Wow.
feedback and perhaps
Okay.
testimonials if you like it, honest ones only. So once I launch it, I will send it to you, Helen, and you can offer it to the participants.
Wow, that's
And
amazing.
we will do it for free. And yeah, because it's
Mm.
it's a big tool, and one of the things that I will make it very clear on this tool or this course or what I can't find the right name for it, is don't do it on your own. Don't do it alone. You can do it on your own, but have supports ready, because it might awaken things, it might open old wounds, it might re-traumatize you. And you don't want to do that when you have no supports available. So
Mm.
always have supports available. If you're working with a therapist, it'll be good to do it with, sort of section by section with a therapist, or with the results, speak about the results with a therapist, what you found. I know that, it's funny, but I developed it. And then as I build it on the software, I'm testing it, right? So I'm taking the questionnaire myself, and I find myself crying, right? And I find myself saying, holy shit, I did not know it was that bad. But now that I put all of it together, I can see it so clearly. How could I not see it so clearly? Now, after writing the book, after developing the tool, it's ridiculous, right? Sometimes the blind spots that we have for ourselves, about ourselves, can be staggering. So I was like, okay, I need my therapist to cry to. But it has a very powerful cleansing effect, I find. Like
Amazing.
once you unearth these things, it's like opening a wound and let the pus out, and then you can start healing. Oh yeah.
Yeah, awareness starts with that, right? A lot. And so it's a lifelong process, I'm guessing, right? As far
Oh,
as,
absolutely.
revisiting these things. But it sounds like an incredible resource. It's funny, I remember working with a woman who never liked to use the word tools
Mm.
because she felt like we do not necessarily need to be fixed. We are whole. And I found that kind of interesting. Like, so when you're saying, what's the word, the program, but it could be discovery. It's
Yeah,
like a diagnostic is a
yeah,
self-exploration,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, I
So
call it self-exploration.
yeah, I like that.
Because
Yeah.
it is self-exploration, and it's going to be
Mhm.
online.
Sounds incredible. So thank you for offering that to our small group of who were engaged in the book.
Mhm.
Because it interesting as I think back to the With Heart book circle, which in in looking back, I mean, there has been at least 50 people off and on show up, like at different times, depending on the book. And so, and in the past mentor circles and some of the things that, help with connection and building and having any kind of place where people can go and feel comfortable and open to explore, you know, themselves, to explore what gifts they have, what talents, how they can make a difference. So I really hope you get this out to many more people.
Me
And
too.
I think through your work, which can then also, lead to people reading them. But because there is a lot in here. So to break it down, I can see people, well, our attention span, especially with social media, like it's what,
Totally, totally.
30
So
seconds or not even these
I
days.
know, and I think I said that in the previous sessions, but I will say it again. Another thing that I'm doing to make it more broadly accessible is I wrote like a very short version of it that I called Controlled Essentials. And it is an illustrated book with cartoons and with images and with comic strips and of course text, but it's a very approachable text. It's almost like for teenagers, I would say, and anyone, adults, who just wouldn't read the control, the big book. And it's one of those books. I call them washroom books because you can take them to, to the washroom just to read, one chapter and continue the next day, and just go through it at your own pace. Um, and of course, it's going to be in an electronic version as well. Um,
Amazing.
but I am hoping to reach a broader audience with this, and hopefully young audience as well, because they are the future. I mean, obviously, and it's very important for me because I am seeing in the Gen Z and the Alpha, I see so much promise for renewal, and yet so much vulnerability to manipulation. And that worries me deeply. And so we need for the young generation to think more critically, to have a clear view of what the cone looks like, sounds like. What are the sound bits that raise a flag? What are the things that we should think? How can we discuss these things? So that to me is very important, is to make it accessible broadly.
Incredible. Amazing. Amazing. I
And
mean,
sorry, oh, go.
someone has a question. Oh,
Or feedback or anything, whatever you.
Andrea, yes. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Really, they were very nourishing. These three meetings, and to have the author go through the book, but in a way to get the gist, so we can understand at a eagle's eye view, sort of, and then be like, oh, okay, now I know why, even if I didn't read those chapters, now I know what I'm going to find. I see the meaning of it, why it's important and whatnot. Also, thank you for sharing your projects, because we can see again the other perspective of your work and be like, okay, I'm going to wait for this because I want this for my kids. What I got from all these meetings is ideas, not about how to use it in my family, how I can share about it. Some of it is like homeschoolers can study this book, for instance.
Definitely.
Families like mine, who we are homeschoolers, but also as an educator and mother, I'm always thinking of, if I were to dive deep with something, with some resources with my children and my family together, so my husband also, what would those be? And I think this is one of those. Another one would be something related to emotional training and things like this, so, but I see this one as a top one, like you said, because we're raising new generations, and it's very important for them to be aware. At least we know we've imparted something and say, hey, this is what you can see, this is how to see it. It's up to you whether you want to see it and you want to do something about it for yourself, your friends, your future family, and whatnot, right? At least we've passed on that. And what happened here is the gift you have just given us, thank you so much, is something that I keep hearing from people who live like me. It's this idea of show up when somebody invites you to something, and you feel something, even if you can't explain what it is, but you feel like saying yes, you don't know why, go and show up, because then you'll find out what's in it for you. This invitation to come to appeared in my life many times, but I felt like today, like this is the one to come. And oh my God, like, look, the end brought even more than I ever thought it could be possible. So thank you. And another thing that also relates to what I said about sharing about this book in different ways is a friend of mine who's actually Muslim. She said that she believes, and I lived it too, and they believe in this idea of, if you have knowledge, you have to share it. Don't keep it for yourself. You share it. And I think this principle is something that is going to help all of us bring that change. Those small things you said that we can do is, you have knowledge, you know it's good, you know it's helpful, it's useful, share it and let other people choose if they want to have it in their life, if they want to use it, if they want to share it further and whatnot. So yeah, thank you. I really have ideas. We're going to keep in touch, because I want to take the self-assessment tool, like go through those questions you give us in the newsletter.
And there's something else. Sorry,
Yes. Yeah, please.
because you remind me, because I'm doing so much that I keep forgetting the things, some of them. So the essentials that I told you, the controlled essentials, which will be much easier, faster read. I also developed a parent and educator guide that goes with it. So if you do homeschooling, or anyone who's doing homeschooling, or if you're an educator and you teach in schools, you have everything there, step by step, that you can use with your class or with your children, including guiding questions, interactive activities, assessments, everything, like a turnkey course, if you like, that you can use it alongside this book to make it more tangible, to make it more exciting, to make it more of a learning experience versus just reading something. So yeah,
So is that part of the course you were talking about, or is the book?
The book.
When do you think it's going to be ready, so then we can plan how we do it with our children?
I don't know. I mean, it's ready. The thing is, I'm trying to figure out strategically when the right time it is to release it. Every release needs to also come with promotion and marketing. And I'm like, I'm just one person.
Exactly.
I develop so much that I don't have time to promote, which is almost ridiculous. But so sometime this year, possibly at the end of the winter, kind of springish.
You mean 2025?
No, six.
Oh, okay. I was like,
No, no,
We're
no.
in next year.
next
This
year.
2025 is done.
Yes, it's done. 2 weeks. Let's just enjoy the rest of it.
Done. It's a
Andrea,
rush.
what I can offer is when you have something you're going to release, I have a newsletter. Send it. I can share it. Andrea, you'll be
Perfect.
on it anyway, so as long as you don't unsubscribe. But there's always other things going on here too. I look forward to it. Nava, I just have to share this with you though. One thing my word of the year this year was focus. I did an okay job, but because it was a lot. But this coach I had worked with said, follow one course until successful over and over. And I'm like, I still haven't learned it. I'm getting there. But that's because there is so much, right? And it's like, I had three major things I kind of wanted to do this year. One was finish my book and get it out and published, and it's so close. I just did some tweaks to There's 11 chapters. I just did some final tweaks to chapter 10. It's going to the editor, and then we're there. It's on mentorship, so National Mentoring Month is January, so it'll be out sometime then, or before then, or whenever. But that was the 1 million mentor moments, which again had an idea, and I thought, oh, I had to get the book done first, and then we decided let's just do it, and here we go. It started. It's all related. The third one was a scholarship fund, but I'm revisiting it because I'm not sure whether it's a traditional scholarship or a bursary or something else that I just it doesn't, like thinking about cones. It's like it doesn't need to be the way that
Yeah.
society has. But with my mom, when she passed, and there's a little bit left after I've cleaned up all the taxes and all kinds of stuff. And I thought, oh, that would be something I can use to start kind of in her memory and my dad's memory. And so I thought, oh, but that could go to a project. It doesn't have to be a traditional scholarship, through the education system.
Yeah, yeah.
Although that did save my life, I think. But anyway, that's a book for another time. Emmeline, any thoughts? I know that you may not have had a chance to get through the whole thing, but I know that you always have beautiful thoughts and reflections, and this whole thing about just going internal and working on ourselves. I thought that probably would
I
connect with
mean,
you.
yeah, I wasn't expecting to connect so deeply with what you offer. I teach meditation. That's sort of outside of working with her, and that's what I do. And so um there's something so potent and profound and meaningful with looking at, I call it truth, but essentially it's love. It's just oneness. It's who we are through many different angles. And people are still in 2025 quite scared and apprehensive of the spiritual path. It sounds very solemn. It sounds very mysterious, exotic, and foreign. And so what you've done is that you have demystified the mystical with modern concepts, socioeconomic clues, political insights, and just a human anthropological way of looking at something which is inherently profoundly spiritual, which is that our true nature is love and we are actually one, and separation is an illusion. And so it's wonderful because I think it's such a broad transversal invitation to walk a path of unity and of connectedness and of truth. And so I was really inspired. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. One of the things that I want to ask of you, all participants, is if you don't mind going on Amazon and just writing a brief review, an honest review. It can be one sentence, however long you want, because I have so many people who have read the book and I only have like 9 reviews on Amazon because people never think about going and putting in a review. So if you can, I would really appreciate it. And just honestly, I'm not asking for anything but your own honest opinion. And yes, I thank you, Emmeline, for noticing that this book actually has a very profound spiritual undercurrent.
Yeah.
I feel, and I don't think you've been in the previous ones, but I said in the first one that I am a channeler, and and all the model, the wisdom. I did a lot of legwork as well and research, but the concepts, they are given to me, and they are given to me through writing. And it is all about bringing us back to who we truly are, pulling us out of these artificial constructs that divide us, and remembering who we truly are, who this earth is truly is for us, who we are for it and for each other. And I always feel that all my work is bringing these high concepts through, I call it, through the back door to people. And I also write a lot of fiction, and actually one of my first fiction books that will go out in May, it's a thriller, and that too it's a thriller. It's about a serial killer. It doesn't matter. There's all kinds of things in there, and then the underlying belly is something spiritual, right? Is something more. And I have 6 others. But and yeah, Helen, speaking of focus, I think it is an
You're incredible
mission for an ADHD brain.
I can relate. It's okay.
But it's okay.
Wow. Yeah, well, I look forward to that too. Well, this is, yes, anything I can do. And just thank you for taking the time for these 3 sessions, spending the time on the presentations, just sharing all of this. I mean, I was kind of teary-eyed a few times today for some reason, but I think it's because, when you are, I mean, we connected for a reason, Nava,
Yes, we have.
and I think, when you have people that you connect with, even in these small circles, the people that come in and out, they're there for a reason, for whatever the book called them, and I think that's just opening up to that, and what Emmeline said, which is really going back to, what it's our true essence, really, which is, pure love. And we kind of lost that in these cones. So there we go. I just think I'll just close it there, if that's okay with everybody. Just wonderful. I hope you enjoy the rest of this calendar year. And I love that there's lots planned for the next year. I just want to leave you with Danielle Laporte, who is a spiritual woman. I don't know how she wrote a book called Love Something. I can't remember, but somehow I found her. But she said she goes by the lunar calendar, I believe, or something. So she's like, January, everybody's worrying about starting the year and all this, activity. And she's like, don't start the year then. Start it which is later. And I thought that sounds kind of nice. But yes, I hope you have some fun time to rest and relax, and especially when you have all these plans. And Andrea, it's just been a pleasure having you for this 3 series, and we'll see you in the new year. We have a few books chosen, which will be, fun. I think the first one in February is called Living with Heart, or Living by Heart. I'm hoping mine will be out, so it may not be time to read it, but we might just have a chat and celebrate that it's out there in January. We'll see. I think it's time to get out of my own cone and get it out there. But anyway, I'm just hoping to see many of you next year, and thank you all for just showing up. And yeah, it's been wonderful. So have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you so much, Helen, for having me, and what a delight to meet all of you. I wish you a wonderful holiday season.
Yeah.
Enjoy everything.
Thank you. Take care,
I will
everybody.
see you on